I want to talk about what we call a practice growth system. And I know some of you that have been around the block a little bit, you've been clients or you've followed us for a while, you've heard this term, but maybe it wasn't explained and it wasn't shown as clearly as I'm going to show it to you tonight. To grow your practice, to have a system that's designed to grow your practice, you've got to focus on the three elements: practice, patience, and people. And each of these three parts is critical to achieving real success in your practice. Now, I talked earlier that you have to weight, as the owner, you have to weight the practice a little bit more significantly, because if the practice dies, the patients die and the people die too. You can't service your patients and you can't grow your people and provide them a livelihood if the practice is bankrupt or doesn't exist, right? That's what I mean by that. So you've got to weight the practice a little bit higher than the rest and ensure, if you've got a dinner table, the practice is eating first, right? When you can synchronize, that's the goal of this, and you can get these three elements synchronized, you're going to create the successful dentist in the middle. Now, I use the term successful dentist. This means different things to everybody. For some people, this just means enjoyment in life and low drama. Some people, it's wealth and status. Some people, it's family and free time. To some people, it's being able to have an impact on their community and give back. Whatever that means to you, if you have these three parts in sync, success on your terms is going to be able to be achieved. But what happens when any of these three things are missing, or as we've seen in some cases, maybe two of these pieces are missing, right? Or if you're a startup, you might not have any of these three pieces, and things are really wonky, right? And that's really the struggle with startups, is getting these three pieces and juggling three balls all at once. So what's this look like? What if the practice is missing? Oftentimes, when the practice foundation is missing, I hear, I just need more new patients. Now, I'm not saying that's the exclusive reason that I hear, I just need more new patients. But when the practice foundation is missing, I often hear, I just don't have enough new patients, Colin. If I just had more new patients, I'd solve all my problems. And what that really boils down to is it's a lack of understanding about the numbers of the practice. Oftentimes, when the foundation is not in place, there's no dashboards, there's no metrics. We lost an NBA icon a month and a half ago, Kobe Bryant. Kobe was a legend. He gave tremendously back to his community. He was a superb human being. I think I just heard he got nominated into the Hall of Fame. Kobe died because his pilot flew a helicopter in the fog with no dials or dashboards. If Kobe's pilot had had a little gauge that said mountain approaching, it's likely Kobe would have been alive. If you're flying your practice blind, you take the same risk. And oftentimes the first indicator we have that something is wrong with our practice, if we don't have dials and dashboards, is cash. Cash runs low. Now, when the elements of the practice are missing, it often manifests that way. Low profit, low cash, every dime is getting squeezed. Maybe you've had to pony up the cash to make payroll or to pay bills. Maybe you're not sure where to start, what's costing you so much more than it seems like it used to. You've got to have dials around the critical elements that are going to drive success in your practice. And realize that while each of these three areas you as the doctor/owner are responsible for, you are uniquely responsible for the practice. Here's why. You are solely responsible for the practice. Your dental practice is your game. You are the creator of your game. You create all the rules. If you don't like how the game is being played, it's your duty to change the rules so that you're winning. You get to set the rules. So let's make damn sure we win at the game we're playing, where we get to create the rules. The practice is all about setting the rules and defining what the game is. And that's why when there's low profits or low cash, practice foundational issues always fall back on leadership's shoulders. It's always a leadership issue that causes the foundational practice issues. That, again, like I said 100 times tonight, this isn't judgmental. There's no, this isn't about right and wrong. My goal is to give you guys the tools that allow you to build up your practice and grow this foundation so that you can go forth and prosper. And when the practice foundation doesn't exist, this is typically what the cause is. Now, what if the people are missing? What if you got a great practice foundation in place and you got great patients, but you just don't have the right people in your practice? You have a lack of A players. Maybe your team's not performing, or maybe you've got some cultural issues that you're dealing with. Maybe you're dealing with accountability issues. Nobody is accountable for things that you think somebody needs to be accountable and responsible for. Anybody ever had that conversation with a team member? You're supposed to be owning this, and you're not, yeah, a lot of people, yeah, love it. Yeah, you're supposed to be accountable for this, and you're not. Maybe you're constantly cleaning up other people's messes in your office. And God, maybe worst case, drama. I am allergic to drama. Or even in the worst drama, you get into high drama situations, you get into cultural toxicity. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Cultural toxicity is one of the worst things you can deal with in any business. Anytime there's drama or there's a cultural issue, and we've all had them, nobody can say they've never had them. If I'm talking with my leadership team, I have a little skit that I go through. And anytime they're telling me about some drama or some toxicity or some kind of crap that's happening, I ask them, how much do they want to take out of their budget? What check do they want to write? And what I'm really telling them is drama and toxicity and accountability cost a lot of money. And it's just like the Lee Iacocca story. You're going to sign a check one way or the other. I prefer to sign a check that doesn't involve drama and toxicity. But if you allow that into your practice, you are also signing a different check, and it's going to cost you a lot more money, right? Ultimately, this is going to drive low morale with you and your team, and A players aren't going to hang around. If you've had trouble with staff members leaving and disengaging and quitting and turnover, lack of A players and people problems always lead to lower revenues and lower profits. Now, let's talk about the patients. What if you have a great practice, great people, but something's wrong with the patients? Well, this often manifests itself. You have high cancellation rates, high no-show rates. You might have what I call the patient value roller coaster. Anybody ever feel like they're working just as hard month to month, they're seeing just as many patients and have just as many new patients, yet 1 month they're dealing with a shortage and they got to put money into the practice, and the next month they've got a surplus and they're making money hand over fist? Anybody ever had that happen? Yeah, few people. Yeah, more. Love it. This is what I call the patient value roller coaster. And many times this is driven by a roller coaster of your average patient value. If you don't have a dial around your patient visit value or your average visit value or your lifetime value, I don't care what average you want to look at, pick one and look at it. It's going to open your eyes for why this happens. This is often, the patients are often the final place you want to look in your practice, but it's often the place that we look at first, right? If we just had more new patients. The reality is most practices never get the foundation in place. They never have the solid A players on their team, and then they're trying to push the rock uphill by just getting more new patients. And when you have the first two components in place, this thing is easy. This thing hums like a well-oiled machine. Practices that don't have the right patients, oftentimes you'll see cancellation and no-show rates that are in the 10 to 15% range. That's a major, major issue. I saw a doctor in Chicago a couple months ago that had a 24% no-show and cancellation rate. And he wondered where his money was going. And once we got the dashboards and the dials set up, he looked at me and he said, oh my God, I had no idea. I mean, I knew I had a problem here, but I didn't have a strategy to fix it. And I didn't know where I was at to hold my staff accountable and measure this thing. If you're reliant upon insurance reimbursements and you're constantly battling getting paid and what the write-off of the day is going to be, I want to suggest that now with unemployment going through the roof and insurance rates going down and likely reimbursement rates equally going down, this is a great time to consider a fee-for-service transition. A transition is not today I do insurance and tomorrow I don't. That's not how a transition works. We've got to play the old Indiana Jones with the bag of sand and flip this thing over a period of time. And when you're able to attract, you'll find in your practice that you can attract the right patients and it costs you 60 to 80% less than you're giving to the insurance companies. The insurance write-off game of taking 20 or 30% off the top is a hell of a lot more expensive than just attracting the right patients to start with and paying 5 or 6 or 8% in an aggressively growing practice to attract the right kinds of patients. That's where the secret lies in highly successful practices, is they get off these roller coasters, and especially now more than ever, transitioning towards a sustainable practice model. When you can sync up these three elements, you're going to create your own version of the success. And here's the reality. You may be an all-star at 2 of these. You may have one area that needs a major overhaul. Maybe you've got 2 areas that needs a little tweaking. Maybe you got 2 areas that needs overhaul. And what you'll find is that as these issues overlap, just like in a Venn diagram, overlap creates all kinds of different colors. If you start to overlap some people problems with some patient problems, this thing starts to get real hairy. And it starts to get hard to distinguish what the real problem is. And the value to solve a problem, you guys know this from diagnosing your patients. You got to break down the problem. You got to break this thing apart, and you have to look at the individual elements that are contributing to all the symptoms. This is the same way in your practice. Being able to focus in and diagnose the right problem is the key to solving it, right? It's often difficult when you're in the practice 24/7 to kind of see the forest for the trees, so to speak.